Good morning, everybody. It looks like I'm a couple of minutes late, but that's okay because you guys are already discussing guitar-related things amongst yourselves, which is great to see. And I'm happy to see there's a lot of you here today. How's everybody doing? Happy Sunday. What's going on, guys? I hope you guys have stuff to talk about because I'm all out of ideas. Just kidding, just kidding. Never out of ideas. There's always great stuff to talk about. First of all, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and see me okay. I think the sound levels are good. I hope. I do have a guitar plugged in. Wow, listen to that reverb. A little excessive, I would say. I might have to fix that later on. Or choose a different patch. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you guys are into and ready for another Addicted to Gear show. We are always ready to go here on Sunday. This is show 196. And, basically, what can you expect from these live shows if you're new? Well, I guess you can expect to be tempted with some new gear talk. We're always looking at interesting new gear, latest guitar releases, amps and pedals and whatnot. We often talk about gear demos, some of the demos that I've done and other people have done. And sometimes we even have some special guests, and we get some people to join us on the channel as well. But the most important thing is the community vibe. You know, the whole basic reason why I do these Sunday shows is for you guys and to give the community a chance to discuss things one-on-one. It's not a question of just you guys tuning in to hear me talking, but I relay the messages that you guys post during the show so that we can, I would say, nurture our obsession for guitars and gear. And we throw in a few other things in the mix from time to time, including poll questions. And there is a poll question out today. So I encourage you guys to look at that. And the poll question today is, what is your go-to excuse for buying yet another guitar to add to your collection? So if you guys don't know where that's located, that's in the community section of the Addicted to Gear channel on YouTube. So just click on that, and I encourage you guys to answer those poll questions. We'll look at the results of the poll later on. And of course, we always encourage people to chat. So if you want to chat, you have to be subscribed to the channel. You can subscribe by hitting the button, and it takes a minute and you're able to jump in on the live chat. And of course, I always encourage you guys to like, what's going on, to subscribe to the Addicted to Gear channel as much as possible. Hit the notification button so that you're able to, when the live streams happen, as well as when I post new videos. And of course, if you can share that information out with your friends that are into gear, especially, we can grow the community and get things even better than they are now. So that is, in a nutshell, what we're all about here. So I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in diligently. We're up to, I think we're a little bit over 32,000 subscribers right now and still going strong. So I want to thank you all for that. And I appreciate you guys tuning in and subscribing to the show. So let's get things started. Enough blah blah for now. Good morning to everybody here. I'll jump in and out and see who's chatting, who's asking questions, and who's here. So Dan is here this morning, as well as Ken. Nice to see you, Ken. Jack, as usual. Mark, what's up? Happening? Mark says the Boss RC 600 looper for solo gigs. He just got that. I wanted to talk a little bit about loopers because I just got a new one also. And maybe I'll dig that one out and show you guys a little bit later. But loopers are great, and not only great for live and solo gigs and stuff like that, but definitely a great tool when it comes to practicing as well. especially if you want to practice soloing over chord changes and whatnot. And now a lot of them also have great drum loops built in, so you can actually use them as a metronome. It's always more fun playing with a beat than, you know, just playing chords. And of course, when you use the drum or the metronome on these looper pedals, it actually makes you more aware of your timing, how good or bad it is, and what needs to be improved. So that's always a really great thing to have, and I think it's a great tool. So if you guys don't already have a looper pedal, I think everybody should have one. So that's cool. So congratulations on that new purchase, Mark. When did you get that? You got that this week, or was that last week, or did you get a good deal on it at least, or did you buy it new or used, or what's the scenario there? Dan says he'll be lurking today. So Dan may be a little bit too far from his keyboard. For those of you that are close to your keyboard, thumbs up would be appreciated. Just a little reminder in case you forget. It's always great to be able to get those thumbs up there when we can. Wayne says, hey man, how are you guys doing? We're all good. Cushman, Ben, Mark, D-Mac. D-Mac says, anybody have... And he kind of just stopped there. So I guess he got distracted. It happens. Happens to me too. Let's see here. Presley, good morning. How's it going, Presley? Working on any new guitars there? Anything on the bench? And D-Max says, anyone have experience with import fees for Harley Benton into Canada? Well, I do. I've ordered Harley Bentons in the past. Import fees are always a strange thing, D-Mac, because depending on how they're shipped, who's shipping them, where they're coming from, changes in my experience the import fees. And the thing about import fees is they're never the same for whatever reason. It's kind of like, it's almost like they pull the calculations out of a hat, because you could order two things different times and the fees will be different. So it's kind of, I've actually reached out to Canada Customs at one point, not for a Harley Benton, but for other things that I ordered, and just trying to say, like, how do you guys calculate this fee? And to be honest with you, the person on the other end of the phone wasn't really able to answer the question. So I don't think they even understand it. All right, Steven's here. Hey, Steven. Nice to see you, man. Steven, thanks for the other videos. I didn't get a chance to answer your last email yet, but I did see it, and I saw the video. It's looking good. Don't give up, man. Don't give up. Think about how great all of that sanding will be for your skin. Your hands will be so exfoliated and soft by the end of the project. Steven's working on my inlay for my Addicted to Gear logo. He's been working on that, and I think it's coming along nicely, but I think it was more than he expected, to be honest. But it's looking good, Steven. Don't give up, man. Paul's here. Paul says one alarm is set for this show for years now. One must obey the Sunday morning alarm, or actually, I do not know what happens if I do not. It's certainly the unthinkable. So, from what I understand, Paul, you have an alarm set for this show? Is that what you're trying to tell us? That's great, man. And I appreciate that. D-Mac is here. Music and Gear is here. Vox Guitars Rock says, morning everyone. I'm staying at my son's place, so burning data. Just wanted to say hi. Hey, I'm glad you dropped in. And you know, your son shouldn't be cheap. You should pay for that data so you can watch the show. You can always pay him back, I guess, right? All right, I'm just going through the list here. I'm just catching up to see if there's any questions. And I think Profile Productions had one here. He says, Tony, should the chorus come before or after the wah? How would you set up your pedal board? And oh yeah, good morning. Good question. A lot of people do have questions in terms of the order of pedals and what the best way to use them and to set them up on your pedal board. I don't really, like, I keep on saying that I don't think there's really a good or bad way to use your pedals, because everybody is looking for a different effect or sound. So if, you know, your configuration works for what you're after, then it's working. It's good. It's not bad, right? But there are some guidelines, some typical guidelines to stuff like that. And I would say, since a chorus is a modulation effect, I like to put my modulations in my effects loops. But if you have it, you know, going into the front of your amp, I would say you would want to put it towards the end of your effects. But specifically talking about the wah, like, I don't really like the sound of a chorus going into the wah per se. Some do. So, you know, I would, you know, you can put it after the wah without any issues. I don't really use the chorus when I'm using the wah. Usually the chorus is turned off when you're using the wah. But if you intend on using both, and you want the chorus sound to bleed into your wah, then you would put it before, you know. But I usually don't use those two pedals at the same time for me. As a matter of fact, I don't use chorus all that much. And you would want to possibly, I guess you would want to put the chorus pedal before your delay, and before your reverb, I would say. But everybody has a different method. I don't know if anybody else piped in on that question has a different outlook. We can discuss as a group here and find what works. Vox says, I'm looking for a Paisley Telecaster. Can't afford Fender money. Thinking Harley Benton. You can always build your own too. You know, that's always an option. Whenever I can afford, you know, Fender money, like this guitar, I'd love to have a Fender version of this. But what I did is I ended up building my own. I wanted a beautiful candy apple red Telecaster for the longest time. Double bound cream, and they're super expensive, you know, the Fender versions. So I had a really nice neck from Guitar Anatomy, and I built my own guitar, called it the Little Rocker, put, you know, the parts and components that I wanted on it. Turned out really great. I even for the laughs put it just says custom shop with the V. It doesn't say Fender. Just says custom shop. Nothing on this guitar actually says Fender, and it plays great, and I'm liking it a lot. So, you know, that's another option. You can buy Paisley Telecaster bodies on eBay. They're available all over the place. There's a lot of stores online that sell the Paisley versions, so you can actually just buy the body and put it together. And learn a few things along the way too. DMAX says, thanks, Paul. Most of the time I've had things come in via Toronto. And then Paul was answering that question. He says that I find with any music gear, it depends on what airport it arrives for any imports. It can be anything from 30% to free. It's also a question of where the product that you're importing was originally manufactured, because there's different import tariffs depending on the country of origin. So even though it might be coming in from the States, if the actual product was made somewhere else, that will influence the cost of the import fees, from what I understand. I don't understand how much it would affect it, but it does. It's like if you're trying to export something, like let's say you're trying to ship something from Canada to the US. They're going to ask you to fill out these forms, which basically will ask you to identify where everything was originally made. So if you're exporting things that were made in China, it's not considered Canadian, it's considered Chinese and has different fees associated with it. It's confusing and boring, to be honest with you. So, but I understand why you're asking. Nobody wants to be surprised and get you're thinking you're going to pay something $150 and it arrives and there's an extra $100 in fees. It's happened to me before. Vox says, Tony loves Telecasters. Funny, as I drove to my son's place for the weekend, I threw my Telecaster in the back seat of the truck. Telecasters are like, your best friend. You can't go wrong with a Telecaster. If in doubt, grab a Telecaster. That's what I say. Actually, and speaking of Telecasters, I wanted to show you guys something. I mentioned this a week or two ago, that my nephew, who lives in Italy, had graciously decided to send me a beautiful guitar body that he worked on many years ago, and he painted to look like the Dragon Telecaster that Jimmy Page uses. And I think I showed you some pictures of it last time. Well, I actually got it. It's here. It arrived. So there you go. So this is a hand painted. It's not something that, it's not a decal or anything. It's a hand painted guitar body that he worked on, I guess from pictures, from photos, to basically mimic what the Dragon Telecaster would look like. And he even signed it in here. He put his signature, and if my eyes don't fail me, it says since Christmas 07, 2007. So this body is not new. It's been there for a while, and it came out really great, and I can't wait. I promised him I would finish it and work on it. And it's a nice looking body, as you can see here. And it's not extremely heavy. From what I can tell, it looks like it's maybe ash, some kind of ash wood. And I think it's going to make a fantastic Telecaster. So there will probably be another project in the works for this guitar. And I want to thank my nephew. His name is Mattia, and he's all the way on the other side of Europe in Italy, and he did a fantastic job on that, and I really do appreciate it. I think it's going to be fantastic when it's finished. Can't wait to work on it. It's going to make a great project. I'm actually trying to find at the moment the Jimmy Page Dragon Telecaster pickguard. And it's not an easy thing to find because it's not a common pickguard. I thought I'd be able to find it on eBay. There's none. Well, actually there is a few, but they're asking crazy money for it because it probably comes from the actual Fender version. I think one person was selling it for $250 plus shipping costs, which is outrageous for a pickguard. There was a few that were being sold on Reverb, but they're no longer available. So now I'm going to try and see if I can find a custom pickguard manufacturer that can actually make one for me. And if I can find one, I'm going to order one and slowly build up the parts that I need to be able to build this guitar. I think it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm just going back scrolling here a little bit. Cushman says his back is bad today, but I took my meds, should be good shortly. Cushman, I know how that feels, man. My back has been hurting since I came back from Chicago a few weeks ago, and I thought it'd be better. I'm sure it's sciatica. It shoots all the way down my leg, and it's no fun. No fun when you're trying to, like, get even just sitting down to practice, trying to sleep keeps me awake. So tell me what meds you're taking. I might have to take the same. I thought it'd be, it slowly would get better on its own, but it takes longer sometimes. And this is why I'm really enjoying my SG, because the SG is so light, so I can actually put up with back pain a little longer when I'm playing with the SG there. All right. Let's see here. Eddie says, saw a guy put a back bow in a neck. He said it made it easier to pull frets. I see where that could actually make sense, because you're basically putting a back bow in it. You're bending the neck like this, which kind of opens up the fret slots. I don't know how. I mean, you would have to put quite a bit of a back bow in it, maybe, or maybe it's not that much. Maybe you don't really need that much of a back bow, but I can see where that could work. Interesting idea. Never thought of that. Something I might have to try. This is why I like you guys, because you always come up with really cool things. Sometimes it's obscure, but I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it makes sense. MFN says, hi Tony, I was in DC this week and saw Steve Cropper's Esquire and Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat at the Smithsonian. Funny how, for some reason, I would have expected Eddie Van Halen's guitar to be larger. Maybe. You know what? I'm really happy that you actually got a chance to see that. I would really love to take a trip and just go down and see these guitars myself. Especially the Frankenstrat, just to be standing next to it. I don't know, can you be sure that it's actually the original one that they have on display, or is it a copy? I'm thinking if it's the Smithsonian, it should be the original. But oftentimes, whenever they have these events or shows that tour the world, a lot of times the guitars are not really the original. They're copies, right? So I'm wondering if that one was actually the original or not. Because that would be cool. I'd love to be able to stand next to that thing. I'd probably stare at it for like an hour and look at all the details and try and memorize everything. I've seen some photos of that guitar, and they have been circling the internet, because there's a lot of people building their own Frankenstrats that use those photos as a reference now. So they're quite important to a lot of people. I've never owned a resonator guitar. No, unfortunately. They're cool guitars. I'd love to have one eventually, but I have never actually thought about buying one. Why do you ask, Mississippi Blues? Are you looking at getting one, or do you have one? Is that something you're contemplating adding to the collection? Mark, I know the ads pop up whenever. It's a little annoying. Even though I try to configure the ads so that they don't pop up, they still do. I mean, there's nothing I can do on my end, unfortunately. So you have to kind of put up with them. And I know how annoying it could be, and I agree. It's a little bothersome. I guess YouTube's really trying to push the ads because they want people to sign up for ads free, right? They sell a subscription so you don't see any ads anymore. So I guess they're pushing that, unfortunately. And Steven says, good morning. I apologize for missing your question a couple of weeks ago. I do not have a shop. I do this in my kitchen, living room, and out on the front porch. So I guess, Steven, that was my question or somebody else's question last week, because we were talking about your skills inlaying, doing inlaying work with wood veneers, and if you have a shop. And so you don't have a shop. So if you have a shop, imagine you would have a shop. It would be even easier, even better. Very cool. Well, you got to start somewhere, right? Kitchen, living room, porch, whatever's convenient. I do the same when I work on my guitar sometimes, so I understand how that is. So Mark says, speaking of Italy, Tony, my wife has chose an Italian restaurant to dine at her at for her birthday festivities tonight. Well, first of all, that's fantastic. I mean, Italian. I'm biased, but you can't go wrong with a good Italian restaurant. Choose a nice wine, and you're in business. Wish your lovely wife a happy birthday from me and everybody here on Addicted to Gear. I'm sure that you guys will have a lovely time. Nothing beats great dining, great wine, great company, right? So now I'm looking at I'm just scrolling all the way to the end because there's a lot of questions I missed here. And I'm just trying to get an idea if I missed any questions. If you guys have questions specifically for me, please put a question mark in front of your question so I know it's directed at me. Otherwise, I might skip it. Presley says, try Carmandan custom pickguards on Reverb. They can make it custom. Thanks, Presley. I appreciate that, man. Nice tip. I'll reach out to them and see how they, if they can. Very cool. See, this is a great resource. You guys are awesome. So I wanted to say, you know what? I've been using this pick lately. This is it looks a lot like a G.A.S pick, but it's not. It's got a little divot in it. Can you see that? This is actually made of horn, animal horn. And it's quickly becoming one of my favorite picks. I'm trying to lower the sound so you can hear the attack on this thing. It's crazy. Like, I like the G.A.S size picks, but this definitely has a different attack, and I'm loving it. These are picks that come from Timbertones, I think. I did a review on some of their picks. They have the Timbertone line that is wooden picks, which I'm honestly not crazy about because they kind of have a dull sound to them. They might be good for acoustic, stuff like that, but I find that they lack the attack that you would want to have on an electric guitar. But they do have other picks in their collection that are made out of horn. And I'll share, let me share my screen so I can show you a little bit more about this. All right, can you see that? So this is a blow-up view of the pick, right? And so you can see how they're made here. They have, actually, you can see how they're made. So you can see that the texture has that sort of horn look to it. It's actually made from animal horn. They're not cheap. They're about $6 each. And they're easy to lose, so you got to be careful. But it's made of black horn, apparently. And they say that they recommend these groove tones for acoustic guitar, electric guitar, gypsy jazz guitar. It's buffalo horn, apparently. And I really like them. And they make a whole bunch. You know, they have all of these different versions. If you go into the materials at the top here, so they have all products, instruments, shape, and materials. If you go to materials, you have the bone, carbon fiber, coconut, felt, glass, horn, leather. You know, they make them out of everything. And I have quite a few of these picks in here. There's a slew of different versions, different thicknesses that I've been trying, and these really work really nicely. My sister was very sweet, and she sent me a collection of these as well, which, you know, have a texture to them, and I've been using those as well. And awesome picks. So I recommend those to anyone who's looking at perhaps experimenting with different types of picks. and materials. So I just lost my connection here from my my plug, so I'm just gonna re-plug this guy in. Let's see if that works. Can I? You know, I hate when this happens, when you have too many wires and you lose your... There we go. All right. All right, now I can hear better. And now the camera is kind of out of focus. There we go. Technology. I tell you guys, it's not easy. It's not easy. All right. Can I put a link to the site in the chat? Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And like I said, I did a review on these on my channel. So if ever you want to check that out, you can. I'll put it in the chat. Here we go. There you are. Paul says, I use a bog standard fender medium celluloid, but I drill a hole in the middle for a grip so it doesn't spin. Yeah, a lot of manufacturers now are starting to do things like that, right? They're starting to put in grooves and little holes, and I think that actually does help. What's $100, Cushman? Oh, I see. I see what you guys are talking about there. The ad blocker. Yeah, I get it. Steven says, I also wrote to Gibson to verify the radius on my 2550, and they also got back to me and sent along a schematic too. I'm happy to hear that people are responding, and you know, don't keep people waiting when it comes to information about their guitars. Some companies are not that responsive. I tend to feel like the bigger companies take a longer time to respond. Marcel says YouTube has a family premium option, so you can split the cost between family and friends in order to get an ad-free experience. My son graciously put me on his. No ads. I you know, honestly, I consider paying for no ads. It really is annoying. And it's time consuming. Like, it steals time out of your day, especially if you're doom scrolling most of your day, you know, and the ads keep popping up. Then I think it's worth it just to pay for it, you know. The amp build's going. It's going, and it is nearly done. I haven't done a lot of work on it, I'm going to be honest. I've put it aside, and I keep reminding myself that I have to go back, continue working on it. But I haven't had too much time. I've been working on another video review for you guys, which I'm going to post probably today or tomorrow. Another guitar. So if you guys, you know, have been asking yourself, hey, how come Tony's taking so much time reviewing guitars? I'm busy right now because I do have visitors from out of town. My sister is here. She's visiting us, and I'm super happy about that. But because she's here during, you know, this period, it does, you know, I try and entertain as much as I can. So because of that, I haven't had too much free extra time. So this is why things are a little bit delayed. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm happy she's here. But you know, sometimes things priorities shift a little bit, and that's why this is happening. But this is why we have the Sunday shows, to be able to catch up. Who out there actually watched the Robert Johnson documentary on Netflix? Have you guys seen that at all? Anybody out there? I watched it the other day. I tend to like watching documentaries more than other types of like movies and stuff like that. And there's one on Robert Johnson, and I thought it'd be kind of corny. Because we all know the myth behind Robert Johnson, the mojo, you know, crossroads, and you know, made a deal with the devil and all that kind of stuff. But in actual fact, there's very little known about the man. And it was interesting because they did manage to find enough information to make a documentary out of it. And I kind of found it entertaining. So, if anybody likes that kind of thing, is into, you know, old blues and guitar history and all that kind of thing, I recommend watching that documentary. I found it entertaining. Um, the good news, and I think this is good news, maybe some of you might not agree with me, AC/DC is touring again. Have you guys heard the news? So apparently they're gonna take one more kick at the can, and Angus and well, of course Malcolm is not there anymore, you know, but Angus is there, lead singer is there. I don't know if the bass player will be replaced on. I think it's really just those two, the singer and the bass and the guitarist, that are going to be the original members on this last tour. But hey, as long as they can do it, I think it's a good thing. I haven't gotten a chance to go see them ever. That's one of the bands that I would have loved to have gone to see. Never had the opportunity. And when they came to our town quite a few years back, I remember it was one of the big tours that they were on. They were at the Olympic Stadium. I think they were there for 2 nights, maybe even 3. I don't remember. It was pretty much sold out. Stadium holds a lot of people, and but it's terrible for sound. And I just felt like the venue was like, there's nothing good that comes out of going and watch a concert at the Olympic Stadium. For those of you that don't know, we have this stadium that looks like a big toilet bowl, and we're still paying for this stadium. I mentioned this a couple of weeks back. It was built in '67 for the Olympics. Now they're talking about replacing this retractable roof on it that never actually worked. It never retracted. They had to change it already. Well, they installed it once, never really worked. Then it ripped. It was made of some kind of Kevlar, and now, so many years have passed that they want to replace it. I don't know why. Honestly, they should just tear this thing down. Anyways, they got an estimate for, I think it was $800 something million. Imagine. This is just the roof. Never mind the rest of the stadium, just the cruddy little roof that never works. They want to spend almost $1 billion, and if they're estimating 800 million, it's going to go over $1 billion for sure, because that's how we do things here. So that roof is going to cost us a fortune. It's probably going to cost us, the cost of a new stadium, basically, I would say. And we're still going to have this monstrosity here, and it's not being used for anything. It's not good for concerts because the acoustics are terrible. Nobody wants to actually play in it. So anyways, sorry for digressing and going into a rampage on that. I just feel very strongly about it, because it's my money at the end of the day, and they're going to be like blowing it again. Somebody's going to get rich out of this deal, but whatever. I would have torn it down so many years ago, and they're saying, oh, it's going to be too expensive to tear it down. That's BS. I know some people. We can get rid of it real fast. But anyway, that being said, I was just talking about the AC/DC concert that was at that stadium, and that's one of the reasons why I decided not to go, because it was at that stadium. And I know people that actually went to that stadium show, and they said the sound was pretty bad. But still seeing AC/DC was a treat, right? Yeah, don't get me started, Steven. I know how much gear you can buy with that kind of cash. I'm telling you, I don't understand how they came up with that number. Somebody is doing something illegal somewhere to be able to say, like, and I don't even know how they can tell us with a straight face that it's going to cost $800 million. Like, for $800 million, that roof should be made of gold, Anyway. Let me come back to my Zen place. Let me drink some water. Give me a second to compose myself. Okay, I'm good. Sorry about that. Oh, you guys, you don't know. You don't know the struggle. Keith said he went to the Olympics in 76. Is it? In Montreal. Cushman knows the guy too. Marcel says, I saw Michael Jackson at the Big O. Sound was so-so. I had seen U2 at the Big O during the Joshua tour. The Joshua album. Joshua Tree, you guys remember that one? Anyways, I remember watching them there. The thing there about U2, it wasn't like totally terrible because the Edge uses so much delay and delay effects that the Big O has a natural delay because of the shape. So it was just like more delay, you know? But anyway. Marcel said, Skimrush says, Marcel, I've been buying V-Picks. They're expensive, but worth the cost. Not a pick snob, but I got over the too expensive mindset. V-Picks are good. You got another vote for V-Picks here. I do have some V-Picks also. And if you find the right one, they have a lot of different shapes. If you find the right one, those are really good too. But, you know, it hurts when you lose one of those picks. Because when a pick costs you $6 to $8, almost $10 per pick, you definitely don't want to lose them. I tend to put these in my pockets. So, you know, they often end up in the wash and stuff. And I almost lost this one yesterday. I was actually looking for it today. So I have to be super careful with these. Anyways, I won't dwell on the Olympic Stadium thing, I promise. Other news, which is pretty cool, I think. Paul McCartney, his long lost bass has been found. Have you guys heard about this? It's making the rounds in some news channels online. Basically, his legendary Hofner bass, the bass that he used when the Beatles started playing at the Cavern Club, disappeared at one point, probably got stolen, and it's been missing for 50 years. 50. And so it recently was returned to Mr. Paul McCartney. And apparently they launched a lost bass project, so trying to find this thing. And so I guess it worked because the bass was found. Now this lost bass project was launched in 2018, so it took a couple of years. And I guess because the news got out and a lot of people were aware that, somebody was looking for this bass, I guess whoever had it probably figured, you know what, I better come clean. Because, if you have this guitar and it's actually been stolen, you can get in trouble. Stolen gear is never good, especially when it comes from somebody like one of the Beatles. So apparently it was stolen from the back of the van on October 10th, 1972 in the Notting Hill area of London. And they tracked it down. Apparently it was stolen. And the person who stole the bass sold it to someone else. Of course, he wanted to ditch it. And then somebody bought the guitar, the bass. So now this bass, they say, is worth $15 million. Now, I think that's a conservative number. Because we know that when guitars from famous people go up for auction, they sell for a fortune, right? We just saw that recently with Mark Knopfler's collection. So, Paul McCartney is as big as it gets, and that bass is pretty much world famous. So they're estimating the value at 15 million, but I think that's undercutting what people would actually be willing to pay for that bass. Because it's probably one of the most well-known basses in the world. And I think when he bought the bass back in the day, he paid like 37 pounds for it. 37. Imagine. Now it's worth millions. So, if you had that bass, that would be quite a dilemma. Like, what do you do? Do you give it? Do you give it back? Do you just not say anything? Hope nobody's gonna notice. Hopefully things will blow over, and eventually, you could sell it. But it's gonna be kind of hard selling it. Too many people know it's missing, right? So what do you do? I think they did the right thing. I don't know if they sold it back to him. It doesn't say whether they sold it back or just gave it back. But I'd like to hear that story. Apparently, the thief sold it to Ron Guest. He was a landlord of the Admiral Blake pub for a few pounds and some beer. Imagine. So anyway, I don't know if they're going to actually make a movie of this or some kind of documentary on this. Somebody might, but I think if this base ever goes up for auction, it would pay off the roof for the Big O. I'm thinking it would fetch that much money. So just to put it in perspective, imagine. Anything from the Beatles. If you have any kind of memorabilia from the Beatles, anything signed is worth a ton of money. Never mind a guitar, an original bass guitar, imagine. Anybody here have any collectibles? I don't. I wish I did. I'm not big on collectibles like that. But I know a lot of people will get like signed, autographs and stuff like that. The only, I guess, quasi-famous person that I ever got an autograph from was the guitarist from the Scorpions. Remember the band, the Scorpions? I was working during my, I guess, college years. I was working in a store downtown. It was a shoe store. And I was working in the stockroom of that shoe store, just making a couple extra bucks. And we had a very nice collection of boots, cowboy boots at the time, snakeskin, python, all that stuff. And I remember there was a few people walked in. They definitely seemed like people from out of town because they had an accent. And, heard the guys whispering in the front, and I'm like, what's going on? What's the hoopla? And they're like, hey, he's the guitarist of the Scorpions. I wasn't into the Scorpions at all, but I liked playing guitar. So I'm like, let's see if I can get an autograph. And I got an autograph. I don't know where it ended up. I think I lost it. It's somewhere. So anyways, not exactly on the same level as, getting an autograph from Paul McCartney or any of the Beatles, but still. Skimrush says, I have many guitar picks I got during concerts, including Santana. He handed it to me. Oh, that's cool, man. That's cool. I would get that like framed or something. Keep that one. Music and Gear says, I have a 1988 PV Vanderberg, my only guitar other than my 1968 Kramer that has become worthy of big cash. I love when that happens. When you have a guitar for so long that eventually it gains value, I like that. I like that. Jamel says, I have a couple of t-shirts signed by Doyle Bramhall, great player, by the way, after seeing a show. Very cool. Steven says, yeah, my Python boots is too tight. I couldn't get it off last night. A week went by. Now it's July. I have a pair of cowboy boots, believe it or not, and yeah, I understand how difficult it is. Sometimes cowboy boots are not easy to get on and off, right? You gotta like struggle with them. Like those old westerns that you used to watch where the guy used to get shot at the end of the movie and he's like, "Don't make me die with my boots on," you know? You gotta take the boots off. What else can I say? There's good news, I guess, if you're a fan of Gibson guitars, because Gibson has unveiled 11 new guitars, and there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare about those new guitars, and I kind of understand why. Because I started looking at the pricing on them, and a lot of them are very expensive. So I think they kind of try to sneak them by. So what do they release? I'll let you be the judge of pricing on these, okay? A lot of these are custom shop beauties, I guess, if you want to call them that. There's a few different ones. There's a 59 ES335 model, which are like, they have a sparkle paint on them. The felon blue. Love that color now. They have a Les Paul Modern Light, which that one is not that bad. It's 1,449 euros. Let me see if I can get the pricing in Canadian dollars here, because euros doesn't really tell anybody anything. We have to do the conversion. Hold on. Let me just see if I can find the pricing in American dollars. I think I did here. Let's go directly to the source, which is the Gibson website. And I'll pop this up on my screen so you guys can see. There we go. You see that? All right, so these are the new guitars, the ones that recently were released. And so let's start from the top, shall we? So this is a beautiful guitar, I think. 1959 ES335 reissue, diamond F holes, like the one that you would see on Dave Grohl's guitar, silver sparkle, and it's a heavy flaked gloss. So the actual guitar, if we zoom in here, I don't know if you can see that or not, but here, so you can see how big the sparkles are. I'm not a big fan of sparkles that big on this type of guitar. I think it's a little bit too flashy, in my opinion. And you know, it's a nice looking guitar. For those of you who like the diamond F holes and don't like the headstock on the Dave Grohl model, this is another, I mean, it's an option for you guys. But honestly, if I look at the price, which is here in squinty print, right over here at the bottom, this guitar is $8,199 US. Plus tax. Almost 10,000 bucks, I guess, when you kind of factor in the tax, right? That's expensive, man. That's super expensive. So I don't know, man. Honestly, like, I think this is why they didn't really make a lot of hoopla around these guitars. This one is perhaps the most affordable one, which is a Les Paul Modern Light. So no binding on it. It's felon blue. And it's $1,499, but I'm not really attracted to this guitar. I just feel like it's, you know, it looks a little bit like a toy, especially since it doesn't have the binding on the sides, you know, just the regular dots and whatnot. I wouldn't be interested in that guitar, even at that price, you know. So then we get into more of the expensive ones. We have the 1958 Les Paul Jr. here. Only $6,499 US. Only. I don't know. Then we have this one, 1957 Les Paul Jr. single cut. Only $6,499. I think, you know, they're hovering between $6,000 and $8,000. So yeah, you gotta like save your do-re-mi here. We have the Flying V, for those of you that are interested in having a Flying V in your collection, or the Explorer here. Those are retailing for $11,000. 11,000, man. Think about that. You know, I don't know, man. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like the only people that are going to be able to afford these guitars moving forward are going to be doctors and lawyers. If you're an orthodontist, you're in business. If you're a cardiologist, you're in business. Anybody else, I don't think are you know, you're going to be able to afford these guitars. And the thing is, I love the way that they kind of tug on your heartstrings because they say, well, it's a 1958, you know. It's a 1958 Corina Flying V. Actually, no, it's not. This guitar was actually probably made a couple of months ago, you know. But they're playing with the marketing and people are like, but it's a 1958. So, you know, I understand why I'm paying $11,000 for it. Wrong. If it's a real 1958, I would say yes, that would probably be worth $11,000. But a recreation of a 1958 that was probably made a month ago, a couple of months ago anyways, no. Sorry. No can do. Like the guitars, don't like the pricing. That's just me. So there you go. They actually also just announced, by the way, that they re-released the Supremes. Not the band, not the singers, but the guitar. So here you have an SG Supreme. I don't know what you guys think. First of all, I don't like having the strap here. I don't like that. An SG shouldn't have a strap button here. It looks weird, and not to mention, it's going to eventually fail. There's not enough meat here, you know. So it should be in the back. That's the first thing. The wood's interesting, but to me, maybe a little bit too gaudy, like with the gold hardware, gold pickup covers. I don't know. It's a little bit too much. Inlays, you know, headstock. I'm a traditionalist. I like the traditional styling on an SG. You know, going something like this. I'm not a big fan of the vibrola. You know, but I'm more of a traditionalist. I don't like this. I don't like this little thing at the bottom here. This structure. And to be honest with you, the neck on this guitar, if you look at the fretboard material, it looks like a different color. It looks dry. You know? So that one wouldn't be interesting for me. I'm just trying to see what would I like to have here. Gold tops are always good, but $10,000 is too much. This is a nice guitar. Like I'd like to, you know, I'm partial to these kind of guitars. I like the P90s. I don't mind the wrap tail. You know, even though it doesn't give you the best intonation options. I like this guitar, but you know, when you look at this guitar, right, and it's selling for $6,000 US, so Canadian, that's closer to like 7,000. And you can buy yourself an inspired by Gibson Epiphone version of those for like under 700. You got to think about it. You got to think about it. So the pricing is a little bit crazy on those guitars. I'm sure they will still sell them. I'm sure people will still be interested in buying some of those. Maybe some of you are even, and you know, I shouldn't be talking bad about those guitars. But I'm always looking for a deal, and the deals are getting harder and harder to find. Who's with me on this? Jamel says, I'm so glad I bought my Les Paul Standard before the price increase. Me too. Me too, man. I mean, I'll hold on to the Gibsons that I do have. But I mean, buying another one, kind of hard, man. Mark says Gibson to me is pricing themselves out of the market. I think if the pricing on the new Gibson guitars keeps going up like that, it's going to leave a lot of room for new players to come in, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, you're going to see a lot of other companies out there making an alternative to a Gibson Les Paul or a Gibson SG or any of those guitars, which might be good. You know, competition never hurts. So if you have an old Gibson right now, you're probably happy about this because you can see the prices going up, so the value of your guitar is going to go up too. And subsequently, the fact that Gibson guitars are going up, the prices on these guitars are going up, it also makes some of the other alternative brands' prices increase as well. As you guys already know, probably, I'm a big fan of the Tokai guitars, right? I have 3 so far. These are basically Les Paul style guitars. I also have an Edwards Gold Top, which I like a lot. And I also have an Eastman, which is kind of like a 335, let's say. And I've been slowly seeing the prices on those guitars go up as well. You know, it used to be that you'd be able to get a Tokai for $700, $800, a good one from Japan. Now they're getting up there. I've seen some as expensive as $2,000, $2,500. And that's a shame. Eddie says there's more dust on my Les Paul than there is on my Andy Gibb record collection. And Stu Pop says I want a 335, but I just can't justify the cost. I get it, man. I get it. Go used as much as possible. Jeff says I'm getting rid of my Gibson, slowly replacing with Eastman. And Music and Gear says the Sire LV7 under $800, nice Les Paul. I guess, you know, the prices are also going to be, I guess, pushing people more towards the Inspired by Gibson Epiphone line, which is also getting more expensive as well. So, you know, everything's getting pushed up. Jamel says, I have no desire to buy another Les Paul since I have one. When I was younger, I always thought Gibson Les Pauls were expensive, at least more than a Strat, plus I didn't see many lefties. And Rexomatic says, having a good week, just picked up a nice 2010 Gibson Les Paul Standard Plus, under $2K from Dave's in Wisconsin. So there's still deals to be had in the used market. I think if you're quick on the draw, you can definitely get some cool stuff. The Nice says, Tony, have you ever valued your guitar collection? No, not really. I haven't. I should. Prices change so often that it's kind of difficult to you know, to put it in a dollar figure, but I guess it would be a good thing. I mean, I have pictures of everything and I have everything documented, and I guess eventually I could actually do something, but I don't have the patience to do that. Paul says the only deals are on great old guitars, but they cannot be Gibsons or Fenders, and they have to be unpopular models. They can, with little mods, sound beyond killer as the wood is aged. Yeah, I agree. Old wood sounds great, you know. I have a guitar that's up for sale right now. It's the my vintage brand 335, and the reason why I'm selling it is because I have the Gibson, I have the Eastman, and so I wasn't really using the vintage one all that much. But when I did a comparison with the vintage one, which is an old guitar, and the newer, relatively newer Gibson and Eastman, the vintage actually sounded more resonant than the other two. and it's a less expensive guitar. So there's something to be said about older guitars. They do age nicely, and I think it basically boils down to the sap that's left in the wood, the moisture that's left in the wood slowly disappears, and I guess the wood just becomes more vibrant, more. It just resonates better. I'm not a scientist on this. Don't quote me, but that's what I feel. I have a very old, the purple Telecaster that I built was made out of barnwood that was actually over 100 years old. So that body is old, and it definitely has a different sound to it. So that's my theory. And I kind of agree with you, Mark, how Gibsons are they're becoming so expensive that people don't actually want to play them regularly. Nobody wants to ding a $7,000 or $10,000 guitar. Same with some of the PRS guitars. You buy an expensive PRS guitar, you tend to keep it in its case. You tend to baby those guitars a little bit more. Again, this is why I like a lot of the road-worn guitars, because they're a working man's guitar. You don't care if it gets dinged or chipped or scratched. It's a guitar to be played, and it's kind of exhilarating to have that freedom where you don't have to before I put it back in the case, is there a scratch that I need to buff out? Is there something I need to do with it? You don't have that feeling with the road-worn type guitars. Dan says, Dr. Tony, super genius. Far from it, man. Far from it. Hey, thanks, Marcel. Thanks for reminding the people to do the thumbs up thing. Randy says, not a Gibson or PRS fanboy. I like to keep it Fendery, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like Fender too, man. I like everything. I'm easy to please that way. Paul says, Tony, the wood dries out, and I find the most I have to do is tweak the truss rod about once every 3 years. Plus, the intonation is fine. And Jamel says, I do love my Gibsons and I cherish them. This is the trap we fall into. They are so expensive, but once you own one and play it, it's a lifelong love affair. I mean, yeah, but that also could apply to any guitar, Jamel. I mean, it doesn't have to be a Gibson, right? You can really feel super attached to other guitars as well. Once you find the right one, I agree with you, though. It's a lifetime love affair for sure. There's some guitars that I just would never sell, and even if they're not Gibsons, or Fenders, they're just like they feel so right in your hands that you would definitely miss those guitars. Green Rumor says, I'm a cheapskate. All my Les Pauls are Epiphones. Love every one of them. Black Custom, Cherry Flame Custom, Gorgeous, Bird Eye Ultra, and Tobacco 12-string. And there's nothing wrong with those. Nothing at all, man. Look at me. I'm playing a parts caster here today, and I love it because I built it, And if I had to go out and buy a Fender version of this, it would cost me $4,000 or maybe $5,000, depending on if it's a custom shop version or not. So it doesn't really matter where it comes from as long as you like it and it sounds good to you. And Music and Gear says, relic it by playing it. Yeah, music to my ears. You're absolutely right. There's something to be said about, naturally reliced guitars. They just have the mojo. There was an interesting article that I came across where they were talking to Lindsey Buckingham, who was formerly with Fleetwood Mac for many years. An amazing guitarist, by the way. Very unique style, very unique guitar, and to me is the driving force behind Fleetwood Mac, right? And of course, they had a parting of the ways. They didn't get along and see eye to eye on many things. And over the years, I think the whole Fleetwood Mac thing was always, very difficult relationship slash band to be in, because there were so many things happening within that band that it was always on, off, on, people getting along, people not getting along, people, hooking up and then having issues. And anyways, if you know anything about Fleetwood Mac, this is not news, right? You probably already know all about this. But he was kind of kicked out, ousted out of the band quite a few years back. They replaced him with different people. Right now, I don't know who's actually taking his place right now. I think at one point Neil Finn had replaced him from Crowded House, which is he's a great singer. He's a great guitar player, but to me, he's no Lindsey Buckingham. And I actually had the opportunity to see Fleetwood Mac, and he definitely stole the show. He was the driving force in that band. And so I would love to see him back into the lineup, because I've seen some of the videos that are out now with the current lineup, and it really seems, for lack of a better word, like moosh. Moosh in Italian means like there's no drive, It's like boring. You know what I mean? They're going through the motions, but it's almost like you can tell that they're standing up there singing the songs and they're thinking, my feet hurt, I want to sit down. That kind of thing. Whereas I never got that impression when I was watching Lindsey Buckingham play. He was always in the moment. He was always playing with soul and feel and everything. So I hope for his sake, he'd eventually end up back in the band. That'll be really cool. And I think he's actually eager to, he said in that interview that he would join Fleetwood Mac again in a heartbeat. But I don't think it's his call. I think now that, two of the other members are no longer with the band, we're looking at just the drummer and the singer. And I think it's a question of, Stevie Nicks just saying, no, don't need the headaches. And she would rather be playing the music without him, So it's unfortunate for him, since I do think he's like the nucleus of the band. But that's how things go sometimes, unfortunately. Shane says, I think Fleetwood Mac is all ghost players now. None of the original members do anything but sing. Yeah, it's pretty much that. It's a payday. That's I think what it's turned into at this point. It's just a job, 9 to 5 type of thing. What else can I say, guys? What else can I say? We want to talk about gear and stuff, but there's not a whole lot of gear related questions I could see. You guys are slowing down on the gear side, perhaps, or not as active. I would say, buying, selling, that kind of thing. So here's a question for you guys: Has anybody out here tried the Badlander amplifier from Mesa Boogie? This is an amp that I saw recently somebody using, and I hadn't really even considered it. It's a Mesa Boogie amp, so it kind of has that Marshall thing going, Marshall / rectifier kind of thing, more like a modern, I guess, beefed up Marshall type of tone. And I was looking at this saying, I never really looked at that amp all that much. And I thought it was interesting. But it hasn't really gotten a lot of hype in the Mesa Boogie line. And I'm wondering again, and I ask this question often, what's going to happen with Mesa Boogie now that Gibson has acquired them? And I was hoping that their first amp release would have been something new for Mesa Boogie. It ended up being something new for Gibson. and I think it kind of fizzled out. I didn't hear a lot of hoopla about that amp that they released. I mean, usually when a new amp is released from a well-known company like Gibson or Fender, there's a lot of fanfare. There's a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon and just waving the flags. I don't think that happened for the Gibson amp at all. So I think they missed an opportunity. I think people were still waiting to see a brand new Mesa amp, and I'm still waiting to see that amp. And there hasn't been any rumors. There hasn't been anything leaked. So I don't know what they're planning, but I hope it's going to be something good and something big, because for all intents and purposes, that Gibson amp, a lot of people didn't feel was a great amp in terms of build quality. I know a lot of people were already knocking that amp when it came out in reviews and whatnot. So interesting times. For me, the only amp that I'm kind of waiting for with bated breath is that new Plex from Dave Friedman. That one, I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy that one as soon as it's available. But I got to wait. I got to wait a few months, apparently. But it's on my list. It's on my radar. And I can't wait. So, but beyond that, I mean, there's nothing that's really stealing my attention right now from any other amp manufacturer or anything like that. So we'll see. There might be something between here and there that might kind of distract me from the Friedman, but I don't think so. I'm a big Friedman fan. Shane says, I'm going to New Zealand for 2 weeks next month. I have no travel guitar. Has anyone ever taken off the neck of their guitar and put it in a suitcase? Yeah, I've done that. It works. It's a great alternative. If you can just wrap your neck properly, maybe put it in a little cardboard box or wrap it in cardboard or something and put it in a suitcase, you should be fine as long as things are packed really well. Just don't bring an expensive guitar. Make sure it's a guitar that you don't mind too much if it gets dinged. It probably won't, but it's always better safe than sorry. Or you can just buy one there, Shane. It's always good to have an excuse, where you're traveling and you're like, but I don't have a guitar. I need to buy something. Perhaps you're going to be able to convince your better half that it's okay. That kind of leads me to today's poll question, guys. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, what's your go-to excuse for buying yet another guitar to add to your collection? I'd like to hear from you. I put a couple of questions up there, a couple of answers up there, so please select the one that best fits your scenario, and we'll take a look at that. I'm sure you guys could come up with more creative ideas than I can, but I think I covered quite a few there. If you're going to be possibly looking at buying another guitar, these can come in handy, right? One question I had for you also that I've been thinking about yesterday, actually, I thought about this. When you go see a band play, let's say you're a big fan of a specific band, right? You have your favorite band out there, and you go out and score some tickets to see the band, and you go out and watch the show. Are you disappointed if the band doesn't play the song the way it was recorded? If they kind of play it differently? Which camp are you in? Are you in the camp where you're paying good money, you want to hear the song as it was recorded, as you've listened to it numerous times over and over again? Or do you feel like it's a bonus if you go see a band and they're playing a song and it's not like what the album sounds like, and they play it a little different because you're getting sort of like bonus material? How do you feel about that? I was thinking about this question, and I'm not sure, I think I fall into the category where I like to see them played a little different, but not totally different. Like there's a fine line between feeling like you're getting bonus material and feeling like, what song are they playing? I don't recognize it anymore, you know? Some artists will do that because you got to remember, these guys are playing these songs over and over again every night when they're on tour. And I'm sure it gets boring as hell to be able to, you know, play that song one more time. Here we go again. So it's normal that I think that, you know, people would want to make it a little different just to keep it interesting. And often, like, you know, when you're looking at a song that has been recorded and captured on a record, it's a snapshot, right? It's a snapshot in time, really, that particular moment. But the song evolved before it was recorded, and, you know, given its lifespan, if they didn't record it and they would just keep on playing it for numerous years, it would evolve even more. I went to see a band with a friend of mine. It was a cover band. And it was the Australian Pink Floyd, right? And they did a fantastic show. It was really good, like to the T, like what you would hear on the record. Like to the T, like they didn't deviate at all. And it was a great show in terms of how perfect it was. But my friend and I looked at each other after the show and were like, you know, it was good, but it was a little bit like canned, you know, it was a little too good. We would have liked to have seen a little deviation there, you know, to make it their own type of thing. They didn't do that. So I felt a little bit, not gypped, but I mean, I could have easily have just stayed home and listened to the album, and it would have been pretty much identical without the visuals, right? So this is why I'm asking. I'm wondering how you guys feel about this. Wayne says, I was in my local music store and they had two Gibson Les Paul studios hanging. They were $3,500 Canadian. Sure glad I bought mine for $1,000. Wayne, I usually walk into the local stores these days, look at what they have, just for giggles, look at the prices, think about the guitar I have at home, which is same model, much less expensive, and I kind of smile and walk out. I rarely am enticed to pick up and buy something that they have in the store, especially if it's brand new. If it's a store that sells used gear, that's a different story. I will more likely than not find something interesting in a used store. I have a better chance of finding something that I like in a used store than I would find in a regular store like Long and McQuaid these days, because it's the same old stuff over and over again. There's nothing really interesting to me in these stores. And if there is something that I have my eye on, I usually look in the used market first, just because I feel like that's where the deals are. Green Rumor says Tom Petty did that. It would have been tough to hate him. I actually saw Tom Petty. I had the luck of catching him before he passed away. He did an awesome show. And yeah, he did deviate a little bit, not all that much, but just enough to give you some extra flavor. And I remember that show was really good. Steve Winwood opened up for him. Imagine, Steve Winwood, also a great musician in his own right. And the sound on that Tom Petty tour was great. The guitars sounded awesome. They were using matchless amps right there on the stage that I saw them using. Sounded great, and he did a fantastic job. So I was very pleased with that performance. And Steven says, I like to see them stick to the original feel of the song, but with added drum solos or extended guitar solos. But I like the lyrics and verses to be album-like. Yeah, I don't think you can really change the lyrics. Like, you can't go off on a tangent with the lyrics. The lyrics have to kind of stay the same. You know, they could do an extended version or something like that. but usually the lyrics don't really change all that much. Stupop says the correct answer is probably, I don't care anymore. Who can afford live shows? Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. When it comes to these older bands, classic bands coming back and doing shows, you know you're going to get raped on those tickets. It's a given. The up and coming bands, not so much. There's some good ones out there. But as an older guy that likes sort of more of the classic rock, I agree. You know, those concerts are going to be pretty expensive, and oftentimes they're a little bit disappointing because at the stage that they're in, these artists have made their money. They're older. They're tired. You know, they're doing the shows just to kind of build up their nest egg for retirement. So, you know, it's not the same. They don't have the drive. They're not hungry anymore. So I understand what you're saying, Stu Pop. I totally get it. So Steven says, listen to ELP, Brain Solid Surgery, then listen to their Welcome Back, My Friend live album. There's a great example of Better Life. Yeah, and if you're a big fan of people like Frank Zappa, for example, you know, he never really played the songs 2 times the same way, even live. You know, it's almost like asking people like Ray Charles to like play the song exactly like the album. He never did that, right? It was always an interpretation of where he was in that particular day, that particular year, that particular venue, and a lot of people do that. And that's the cool thing. You get to experience the music then and there. Zach says, Tony, my cousin who lives in Montreal, works at the warehouse that distributes music gear and instruments out to different stores. I forget the name of the place though. Probably you're probably thinking about Jam Industries. I think that's who your cousin works for. They're not actually in Montreal. They're a little bit out of Montreal, but I believe that's probably who that might be. Stupop says the last show we went to was Elton John and the Jackass. The Jackasses in front of us talked about the music volume the entire show. Yeah, I don't like when that happens. Plus, if the guys in front of you can talk about the music and disturb you, the music's definitely not loud enough. Right? Maybe was it too loud or not loud enough, Stupop? Because if you could hear what they were arguing about, possibly it wasn't loud enough. Steven says, pretend you're playing for blind people. It's all about the sound. It is about the sound, I would say. You're going to the show. Rico says, saw Van Halen on the 84 tour. David Lee Roth got about 30% of the lyrics correct. Eddie made up for it, though. Yeah, but you don't go to Van Halen for the lyrics, right? You go there for the guitar, man. You go there for the guitar. Yeah, David used to do his scat thing where he would just try and improvise, and I guess in his mind it sounded good, but he should have just stuck to the lyrics. I noticed he was doing that also when I saw him a couple of times, but that's his thing, right? Dave's a little bit all over the place, you know. ADD kind of thing. So okay, let's look at the poll question. Why not? We're at that stage. So the community question for today, the poll question was, what's your go-to excuse for buying yet another guitar to add to your collection? Is it A, it's a limited edition, I couldn't resist? Is it B, I needed a backup for my backup? Is it C, I'm just diversifying my sonic palette? Is it D, it was on sale, practically a steal? Or is it E? Guitars are like Pokemon. You got to catch them all. So which one do you think is the most popular? Well, if we look at, according to the numbers here, and we have 184 votes on this, the most popular is it was on sale, practically a steal. And I guess I would use that excuse most of the time too. Actually, my wife uses that excuse all the time whenever she comes home with new shoes or something like that. So I do the same, just to be, just to tongue in cheek, just to give her a taste of her own medicine. And she just usually gives me the look, and we leave it at that. So that's the number one question answer at 46%. Number two would be, I'm just diversifying my sonic palette, man. I use that one too. I keep on saying every guitar is different. Every guitar feels different. So no two guitars are the same. So, if a guitar speaks to you, then it speaks to you. You can't argue with that. So 26% of you said that's the one you're going with. Next, it's guitars are like Pokemon. Gotta catch them all. And although I do feel that way sometimes, I don't think it's a very, realistic approach, because then you would definitely hurt your bank account quite a bit quite quickly. But sometimes, I do feel that way inside. The little voice in my head does tell me that. So yeah, I understand the 13% of you that chose that answer. And then next, it's a limited edition. I couldn't resist. If it's a limited edition, that's kind of a valid excuse in my opinion, because it's limited, man. You're not going to be able to get them all the time. But then again, you deal with people and companies like Fender and Gibson that have a limited edition all the time. Then it turns into, like, as my good friend JP used to say back in the days, limited edition only means you can't buy this crap forever. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they're just going to have another limited edition a year later. So it kind of loses its impact. But 9% of you said that's what you're going with. It's a limited edition. I couldn't resist. And the dead last in this lineup is 7% of you said, I need a backup for my backup. And that's not actually a lie. If you're playing live and you're a semi-professional, or you're a professional musician and you're playing somewhere and you do need a backup for your backup, But I guess only 7% of you would actually use that as an excuse on a day-to-day basis. So I get it. It's all good. So there you go. You have a couple of new excuses that you can use to your advantage if you're looking at something and you got the eye on a specific guitar that you may pull the trigger on. Stu Pop says, I got so mad that my wife had to remove me before the show was over when people were talking. I get it, man. You pay a lot of money for your shows, and it's not fun when somebody's ruining it for you. It really isn't. And Steven says, all of the above, whatever excuses work. I agree with you. You got to change up your strategy so you don't become predictable when you're buying new guitars. I think that's the key there. Stu Pop says she has seen me buy /sell /trade and come out ahead, so she is usually okay if I say it's a steal. Mine does too. At this point, I don't think nothing phases her anymore. And whenever I walk in with a guitar case, or something like that, I think it's just, she's so used to it now, I don't even think she notices anymore, which in a way is good. And I should count my blessings for her being patient. So we'll just leave it at that. So guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. I've been talking for 1 hour and 33 minutes. I hope you enjoyed today's live show. I hope, the topics were of interest. I try to change it up. The content is never the same, or I try and diversify on the following shows. And you can tune in again next Sunday, and we'll probably have some newer topics, better topics, different topics. But, please feel free to put your comments below these live shows, and just, if there's anything you want to talk about, or anything we missed, anything you want to touch upon next week, I always appreciate any kind of input, because I do want to talk about the stuff that resonate with you, no pun intended. you know, we want to make the shows as interesting and enjoyable for everybody that attends the shows. And if you like, you know, if you want to have more guitar and gear related content and less, you know, content around the music industry or what's been going on with other artists, you know, just let me know. We can tailor the content to whatever you like and keep things interesting. If you do like what we're doing here and you want to support the channel, please give us a thumbs up. That always goes a long way. I try and remind everybody to do so, and I appreciate the ones that do. And I hope you think it's a good show, because I'm trying to do the best we can here, guys, and keep things rolling and motivated. So please tune in next Sunday, same time, same place, Addicted to Gear Live, and have your questions ready so we can tackle all of them there. All right? Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe. Please practice your guitar. Don't just noodle. Practice with your heart and your ears. And we'll put out some additional interesting videos for you guys on the channel this week. So please stay tuned for that. Hit the little bell if you haven't done so you'll be notified when I post those videos. All right, guys, have a fantastic day. See you all real soon. Take it easy. Cheers. Peace out. See you guys soon.